Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming today. My name is Karen Fidelic. I'm a product manager on our metadata APIs and associated tools. We're here today to talk about using the Salesforce CLI, the new CLI, for your Ant Migration Tool tasks. As you've been here this week, you've probably been hearing a lot about Salesforce DX. We've been talking a lot about new features and capabilities that we've released with this tool suite that include new methodologies and new philosophies around source-driven development, around scratch orgs, which are disposable orgs that you can spin up and tear down easily. We've been talking about new packaging, and we've been talking about a new CLI, or a new command line interface. One of the things that we want to make sure that everybody is well aware of with Salesforce DX is that it is not an all or nothing proposition. Okay? So you can take bits and pieces of it as you wish. When you're ready for the parts of your process and your flow that you want to take advantage of these new capabilities with. And so what we're going to talk about today is how to leverage this new CLI for something that you're doing today probably, using the metadata API with the Ant Migration Tool to do metadata deploys and retrieves. And we'll show you how easy it is to just move over to the new CLI to take advantage of these same kinds of tasks. You've probably seen this slide a lot as well this week. This presentation may contain some forward-looking statements, so we just want to make sure everybody is making purchasing decisions that are based on currently available product. So I'm going to go through a bit about some of the highlights of the new command line interface. We'll talk about the metadata API commands that are available from within the CLI and how those relate to the Ant Migration Tool tasks that you're probably using today. We'll talk about some ways and improved mechanisms for connecting and accessing various orgs that you may want to be working with. We'll go through a quick demo. I'll show you some of how this works, and then we'll talk about next steps. So the new Salesforce CLI, this is a fully integrated and extensible environment that provides access across our whole platform. So if you've been using the Ant Migration Tool, it is a command line interface that provides access to metadata API commands for moving metadata, migrating it between orgs, using retrieve and deploy API commands. One of the key benefits of the new Salesforce CLI is that it provides access to that, as well as other APIs that Salesforce Platform provides. So you could get started today using something as simple as the metadata API commands, and that's what we're going to talk about. You can also then start to extend and use this same CLI for other APIs within our system, other processes that you may already be using. You can use these Salesforce data APIs. You can use Apex testing for continuous integration environments and flows. We've got an improved authentication model that we'll show a little bit about as well. And so you can take advantage of those things as you're ready and as you want to expand across the flows that you're running today. With that, you can also then start to explore some of the other available options that Salesforce DX provides. So maybe you want to look at scratch orgs. Maybe you want to look at the new source-driven development methodologies. You can do that once you're in the CLI, but you don't have to. And we can get started really slowly here by using just the metadata commands. I also want to stress that the CLI provides the ability for you to use your existing metadata files, your existing orgs, your existing project structure, and your existing processes and methodologies very, very simply. There's very little you have to change. You actually don't even need to go set up a dev hub in order to use the metadata API commands. You don't need to have a new SFDX project file to use the metadata API commands. So it's a really low barrier to just get going really quickly and give it a try. Okay. The CLI itself is really easy to install. It also provides automatic updates, so you don't need to download zip files every time you want to update to a new version. It just automatically stays updated. Additionally, we'll talk a little bit more detail in a few slides here, but I mentioned that we have an improved authentication model. So it's much more secure than what Ant Migration Tool provides today. And we have an improved methodology to work with multiple orgs across the CLI. And I'm going to go through that in a little bit. Okay. So when you get the CLI installed, the first thing you'll be able to do is run help commands. It's really simple. You type in sfdx force, and there's a set of topics that are available under this force command. One of them that you'll see is the MD API. Now, if you've been using the Ant Migration Tool, you've been using the Metadata API. That same Metadata API that is underneath the Ant Migration Tool is also underneath this CLI. So you're going to have access to basically the same options that you've had with Ant. After you've looked at the set of top-level topics, you can continue to push down and see, for the Metadata API, the help and the commands that are available with that, the subcommands. And what you can see is we've got a deploy command, we've got a retrieve command, very similar to what you're probably used to seeing. Okay. If we look at the help for each one of those subcommands, you can see the set of parameters that are available for both the deploy and the retrieve task. What you'll probably recognize is that these parameters are what you're used to seeing through Ant or through the Metadata API, however you've been accessing it. And so what we're going to show is how you can simply move over and just continue to use the same basic commands and options that you've been using by using these CLI commands. Okay. With Ant, we provide a set of supported tasks. They're listed here. We are moving those tasks over to supported CLI commands. We're starting with the tasks that are designed to automate our development processes and our build processes. And so what you can see is that the retrieve and the deploy tasks that we have in Ant are available, like we just saw, through the CLI, through this force MD API, retrieve, and deploy commands. The next tasks that we expect that we'll be adding support for in the CLI are the deploy recent validation task, which is the quick deploy, and also the cancel deploy. And then we'll continue to roll out functionality as is needed. With Ant, you may be also familiar that we provide a set of sample Ant targets. And these are basically sample commands that leverage the tasks, so the deploy and the retrieve task. When we deliver Ant, we deliver a sample build XML file that has a set of these Ant targets. And what we're showing here is for each of the Ant targets that we deliver today, what the corresponding CLI command would be. And so you can see very simply here how the parameters that we've got available through the CLI are able to mimic the behavior that we've got currently delivered through Ant. Okay. There's a GitHub repo that's got a set of sample metadata and a set of these sample scripts. So if you want to grab this, you can take a look at it, and this should help you play around with it and start to see how it's really easy to just move your current processes, your current scripts, your current methods that you're using through Ant over to the CLI. Okay, so beyond just taking what you're doing today and moving it into the CLI, we can also take advantage of some of the new capabilities that you're going to start seeing. One of the things that is not so great about Ant is the security model, or the authentication model that we have in Ant is not the most secure. If you've used it, the username and password is passed in plain text. It's not encrypted. It's stored in plain text files. I hope we would all agree that that is not the best and most secure model. So we've got, within the CLI, a couple different methods that are both OAuth token-based. One that you can actually just go into a web browser through a simple command, enter your login credentials, and it will authenticate that org. It's really quick. It's easy. Second is a JWT-based bearer token flow, which allows you to authenticate an org without any human interaction. So this is really ideal for setting up CI environments where you don't want any human intervention as you're authenticating orgs. Okay, we're going to go through and take a look at what these both look like as well. And you can do this for one or more orgs. So with Ant, you were going back. If you wanted to switch and deploy to multiple orgs, you'd have to go back, change your credentials, change your target org, go back and forth and manipulate that. Once you've got these orgs connected in the CLI, they are good to go for that user in the CLI. You can run any command you want against those orgs. They've been authenticated, and they are currently connected to the CLI. So you can do that, for instance, for a sandbox, for production orgs. You can have multiple sandboxes. And when you set those up, you will use whatever the appropriate instance login URL is. And we're showing here that, for instance, for a sandbox, you would use this test.salesforce.com as the login URL. So once you've got these orgs connected, then you are free to use them for any command that you want. And simply by using this target username or -u parameter with any command that you run, you can specify the username for the target org, and it will run against that org. Even more simply, you can set an alias for an org, and it will run against that org by specifying the alias. And so you can see these examples down here where we are able to set an alias for a given org, and then specify via the -u which org we want to be either deploying metadata to or retrieving metadata from. Okay? Really simple to just flip between these. The other thing I want to show here is this org list. This lists all of the connected orgs with the aliases listed, as well as the username and org IDs. Okay. All right, so I'm going to do a quick demo here. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to, maybe try to type. Or not. If I can type here. All right, we're having trouble switching screens. Try. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is show you what this force org list command looks like. Okay, so what you can see here is I have two connected orgs right now. One happens to be my dev hub. Again, you don't have to have a dev hub in the sense of what we've been talking about with SFDX, but this just happens to be a production org of mine. And then I also have a sandbox connected. I'm going to show you that I have this script here, which is an auth script, which shows the two different ways that we can authenticate and connect an org. The first command here that you see right here is the JWT-based flow. So I've already created a certificate. I've created a connected app. I'm going to run the command here that's going to authenticate that org, which I'm going to alias to be called UAT here. Okay? The second command is a web login-based authentication flow, where I'm just specifying the web login command, and I'm going to alias that one to be called prod. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we'll see. The first one has been successfully authenticated. The second one has opened a web browser, and this is the web login flow, where all I do is enter my credentials in the web browser here, come back. You can see that it says you may now close your browser. I've authenticated it once. And now if I go back and look at my org list again, I will see 4 orgs that are now connected. Okay? And you can see that the aliases have been set for prod, for UAT, for sandbox. And those are now ready to go. Okay, so now I'm going to, I'm going to go into this Dreamforce demo directory. This is the set of files that's available. Can you guys see that? Oh, okay. Let me get this back up here. Okay. This is a set of files that's available in that Git repo. We've got some metadata here, so you could play around, look at this. If you want to play around with deploying metadata, we've got some sample metadata here. We've got a sample metadata zip file, which is in this zip. Okay, so samples here. We've also got a set of scripts. And these scripts are the ones that correlate to the Ant targets. So we talked about the Ant targets being called things like deploy zip and retrieve code and retrieve package. And so each one of these has within it, if we look at the equivalent command through the CLI. So you can see here, this is a deploy where we're going to run specified tests. So I'm doing a deploy. I'm specifying a directory where the metadata should be pulled from. I'm specifying a wait period of 1 minute to wait for the response to come back. I'm specifying a test level of run specified tests, and the actual test that I want to run is listed here, right here. Okay. And then I've got this -u parameter, which is where I specify the name of the alias or the username of the org that I want this command to get run against. And it happens to be set up here to be an argument for this command. Okay? So I'm going to go back out here, and I'm going to run this, this deploy command. Oh, and see, I forgot to put the target org here. So this one we're going to run against the sandbox org. And you can see that what's happening is this is the metadata deploy happening. Okay, so we're going through, we're pulling that metadata, we're running the tests that we specified, we're getting back the test results, seeing what our test coverage was, and it's complete. So that succeeded. I could similarly run that same command against the UAT org. And again, this is a really easy way to simply just switch between different orgs that you want to run these commands against. Okay. The next one that I'm going to show is let's see. Let's go back in here. Let's do that again. Okay, I want to show what this retrieve command looks like. Okay, so this is an example of pulling a package down from an existing org. I've got a package defined. I'm going to retrieve that by specifying the name of the package. I've specified here the target directory that I want to put the retrieved metadata into. I'm going to have to specify through an argument both the target and the package name. Okay. And then I've also got part of this script is to unzip the output. Okay, so we'll run this. And the two arguments are going to be prod is going to be the alias of the target org, and then my package is the name of the package. Okay, and so this is now going to go and retrieve the source. Okay, very quick, there it is. And if we look now in the directory, we've got now this new directory, retrieve package output, which has in it the package that we just pulled down and the zip file. And so we can see the metadata and the package.xml that came down. Okay? So quickly, we're going to go back here. I've got about a minute left, if I can get out. Sorry, racing the clock. So next steps. Again, I mentioned it's really super easy to get this CLI installed. There's a link here of how to get to it. As soon as you've got it installed, you can start looking at the commands that are available to be run. I'd encourage you, get it installed, connect one of your current orgs, try doing a metadata deploy and retrieve like you're doing today through Ant. It's a really, really easy way to just get going with it. We've got a bunch of resources, which you've probably been hearing about. There's documentation on our developer site. It's Trailhead modules. And we've also got a Salesforce DX booth over here. If you haven't been able to swing by there, you can get some hands-on experience using this there as well. So with that, I've got 2 seconds left. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got up here. I'll be available on the side. Thank you all for coming.